I get my heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. I want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, what I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't be there. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what to say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, what I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't be there. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find it, you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Know what I need, I know what I need. To find the keys, the keys.
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixers cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high. Chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the light, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night. Chasing the night.
We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. Love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to RCI TV for round 5 of the McLaren Masters Cup. We're here at Spa-Francorchamps for what will be the 5th round in a very exciting 6-race calendar that we are nearly at the end at. We'll have Monza coming next weekend, and it will be dark at Monza. It was supposed to be nighttime for the Suzuka race. Unfortunately, just ACC things, it didn't happen, but we have got Monza planned for the nighttime. So here we are at Spa then, and you might be noticing over on the side that we have a few more cars on the grid today. Well, the Pro and the AM split have been merged together for the rest of the season, and it's going to be exciting for us to bring you both the Pro and the AM race for the GT3s as well as the GT4s for the rest of the season. My name is Ryan Gill, be your lead commentator for this evening, and joining me as he has for the first 4 races of the season is Howlin. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Happy to be here. Excited for Spa, one of my favorite tracks of this calendar and in general for the GT3 series. Looking forward to what these guys can bring out today, and I'm interested to see how the new amateur drivers who are being paired up with the pro drivers, how they're going to fare. Because I recognize some of these names, and I know that some of these AM drivers are pretty quick themselves.
Yeah, we were going to have the AMs displayed differently from the pros on the timing board, but unfortunately we've had a bit of an issue with the entry list file. It is all working. Everyone who is supposed to be here is here, which is good. but the boards on the left-hand side of your screen are just not functioning properly, but there's not really much we can do about that at the moment. The session will continue as planned, and we will try and keep you up to date with the Pro versus Am battle for the lead of their respective classes as best we can. And of course the GT4s as well, of which their championship is looking close. Championship leader for the GT3s, Joe McCauley, will not be present tonight, which means he should be losing his championship lead should the likes of Peter Henneberg or Bart Matcher steal a good result tonight. As practice is over and official, and we're going to wait for the timer to be run down, the last few people to finish their laps. We're moving forward to qualifying, and it'll be, for the AM drivers at least, it'll be their first taste of this new qualifying session that they're going to have to get used to, because they haven't been running it in the AM split up until this point.
Green light, give it all you can.
Yep, hopefully we'll see everyone getting on with the rules just fine, no issues, because if there are any infractions, we will have to unfortunately see some penalties, but all the drivers are informed of the rules, and hopefully everything goes well.
I did see Quaid Clarson's pull out of his pit box for a moment, and then immediately returned to the pit lane. So I think he had a brief moment of lapse and forgot exactly what the rules were, but he did remember in time. And of course, if you start trundling down the pit lane, you won't be disqualified for that. It's actually if you go out on track and look to go towards starting a flying lap, that's when the stewards will step in and enforce those qualifying rules. If you're joining us for the first time here tonight and you're not sure what those qualifying rules are, well, we have GT3s and GT4s on the track, so what that means is we have to split the qualifying session. GT4s go out first and set their laps. They have a 9-minute window to go out and set laps. And then there is the overlap period. The GT4s finish all their flying laps, and then for the last 9 minutes, the GT3s make their way out on track. And we've seen GT3 cars lining up at the end of the pit lane for, the start of their session before. I get the feeling everyone's going to be at the end of that pit lane by the time the GT3 session starts tonight, because of how long the Spa pit lane is here.
Right, and with only 9 minutes for these guys to put in a qualifying lap time, that gives you basically maybe 2-3 laps if you're lucky. There's really no chance for mistakes setting your qualifying lap today.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult one for the GT4s especially, isn't it? Spa, with such a long circuit. I mean, the longest circuit in ACC, and of course, that applies to the GT3s as much as well. An outlap around here, you're looking at least 2 minutes 40 seconds roughly, around that for an outlap, from the moment you're pit out. And yeah, it's going to be so difficult for these guys if they come out here and they can't set down a banker lap with their first attempt, and maybe they have to return to the pit lane, come back out again. They're only really going to get, realistically, 2 or 3 laps around this circuit, and even 3 is going to be, a bit of a stretch for these guys.
Right.
And it's going to be very, very difficult, and they're going to have to get their qualifying laps right on their first or second run, due to the danger of the fact that they might not get a third run. And Mikael Sundström in the 899, he is the first of the GT4s that will be coming around to start a flying lap here at Spa-Francorchamps for the GT4 qualifying.
Right, and as you say that, Ryan, this is the 5th race of the championship. These guys are familiar with the qualifying format, and at a couple of the tracks throughout the calendar, it's been a similar situation. They really never had a lot of time to set in these laps, so hopefully everyone is ready to go on their first hot lap to set in a good time. And they're familiar, they know what to expect, so hopefully we aren't going to see any mistakes and we're going to see a good qualifying.
Yeah, Mikael Sundström has made his way through La Source, through Eau Rouge and over the top of Radion. Now he makes his way through Kemmel and onto the Kemmel straight down towards Le Combe. This straight so long in a GT3 car. Imagine in a GT4 car how long it takes to reach that braking point at the end of the straight, but Mikael Sundström looking good at the moment. He was a bit wide coming out of Radion, but I don't think he was wide enough to invalidate his lap time. He's going to go through Melmedy and now down towards Bruxelles, one of the hardest corners on the circuit, downhill, off camber, and of course always trying to get on the power as early as possible. Then you go into No Name, the famous corner. So easy to pick up a track limit violation here. Look how wide Mikael Sundström goes. And of course, maximizing the curbs in this GT4 car, it's what they're all about. Now he comes into Puon. First segment, doesn't go wide at the middle part of the double left-hander, goes nice and wide on the second part of the exit. Now he makes his way towards Lefagnes. A big chicane, as it's often referred to, has that kind of feel to it in a GT3 car, not so much in a GT4 car. Comes out now towards Campus. Tight right-hand corner. Don't go too wide on the exit here, or you will invalidate your time. Mikael Sundström probably going as wide as he can and get away with it. Now he comes out of Stavelot, doesn't go too wide, makes sure to keep in between the white lines, and he makes his way through Coubert-Pulferet. I have a bit of difficulty saying that one, but the next one is plenty familiar to everyone. It's Blanchimont, completely flat in the GT3 cars and the GT4s, as you would expect. And now towards the bus stop chicane, late on the brakes for Mikael Sundström, into the tight sequence here at the end of the circuit. Just clips the inside curb and comes out of the chicane up towards the timing line. And the first lap for the GT4 is a 2-minute 30.261 from Mikael Sundström. And here comes Jesperi Hilakallio, the GT4 championship leader, and he'll immediately go a 10th quicker than Sundström.
Svensson crossing the line, third place, not too far behind the first two guys. So solid laps already coming through from these GT4 drivers. Really quick, actually, compared to what the GT3 drivers are going to put in. We're looking at, for that class, 220 is the benchmark, and I'm expecting a lot of these guys to get under that today. So Jesperi Hilakallio currently sitting in pole position. He's coming into this race having had 3 poles already throughout this championship, and also sitting in first place in the GT4 championship.
Yeah, he sits with a 22-point lead in the GT4 championship over Mikael Sundström. Of course, Hilakallio has scored a podium in every single race so far this season. And, well, that's why he's top of the championship. Been very, very consistent. And, of course, he's had 3 pole positions, like you said as well, Helen. So he's good at qualifying, and he's good at picking up a result in the top 3. Granted, the GT4 field is not as big as we'd probably like it to be, but it has to be said that he is so consistent, and he always keeps himself in the pack. The one thing we've seen from the top 5 GT4 drivers is that they're all usually so close together over the course of the whole race that it can mean that one small mistake can lose you a podium so easily. So the fact that Hilakallio has managed to maintain 4 races in a row with a podium, and he'll be looking for a 5th, shows that he's definitely got the quality, you know, to go head-to-head with the likes of Mikael Sundström, Alexander Guglia, and Joachim Svensson on a week-to-week basis.
That's for sure. I think really the only blip throughout this championship for Hilakallio was last week's race at Suzuka. He didn't manage to put in a good qualifying lap. That's the one race where he did not get that pole position. And we saw him struggling a little bit throughout the race, but still, like you said, managed to get that podium finish, as he has done for all of the races so far. So really expecting a strong finish from him today at Spa. He looks like he has a really commanding pace on the rest of the guys, despite how close the top 5 drivers in the GT4 class are. So expecting good things from him today.
Mikael Sundström crossed the line, but he did not improve on his time. He will stay second place at the moment. Jesperi Hilakallio, he went over the line, didn't improve either. And of course, this is going to be the last flying lap that these guys get, I think. Although Mikael Sundström might have enough time for one more lap, although I'm not entirely sure because he did cut it very close. Daniele Vidamari has crossed the line to set his first flying lap. He finds himself 0.6 of a second off pole position, and Mark Brown has now set a lap. So the 7 GT4s that we have out here, of course, Mark Brown and Juuso Grönmark have kind of just been competing with each other for the GT4 championship at the moment. Unfortunately, just not quite at the pace that the other GT4s are at, but of course there's nothing wrong with that. They were, in theory, meant to be competing in the AM championship for GT4. We just didn't have enough drivers to do so, unfortunately, and Vidimari has kind of been, he's been there or thereabouts, hasn't he? He's kind of been up and down, occasionally threatening the top 3, and then sometimes, just a bit further off, but he's starting to show some good progress in this championship.
That's for sure, and he's sitting very close behind Svensson in the championship leaderboard, only 4 points behind him. He does have 2 podium finishes in the last 4 races, so he's definitely up there with the guys, the top 5, like we're saying, really close together, and I wouldn't be surprised for any of them to end up with a good finish ahead of the others. Really, it could be any way throughout the race.
I've just noticed on my timing screen that a couple of GT3 cars are already making their way down towards the bottom of the pit lane. 10 minutes. They've got a minute until their session starts, and they're already making their way down towards the bottom of the pit lane. And this is really, you can see that, there you go, there's Bart Matcher, and in front of him is Andy Boardman. And there's going to be a whole train of these guys behind them as well, and this is just going to be the case. They want to spend as little time as possible in this pit lane. Here comes Hilakalio towards the end of his final flying lap. He's 0.3 down, so he won't be improving. I think he went too wide there anyway, so he'll cross the line, maintain his position. Guglia is 0.4 of a second down on his time. He's just gone off at Blanchimont as well, so that'll be the end of his session. Vidimari is coming into the pit lane as well, so that looks to be the end of the GT4s. Mark Brown is the only one left on track, still setting a lap, or a valid lap, as you can see all the GT3s rushing out onto the circuit. It's like a sprint race to get out there. And
definitely the right call.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Mark Brown will actually come across the line just towards the end of the GT4 qualifying session. He won't improve on his time, so he will stay 7th, as our focus will now shift over towards the qualifying session for the GT3s. And the ones to look out for in this qualifying session, Peter Henneberg and Bart Matcher, they are the 2 primary championship contenders against Joe McCauley. Of course, there are some outside contenders as well that we will pick up on later on in the session, and of course towards the start of the race. But these guys, they're the ones that have the best chance of taking the championship lead after the race here tonight.
Right, and we got to definitely mention Klaus Nearing, Andy Boardman. Those 2 are definitely not too far behind. Nearing just 5 points behind Mattia, and Boardman 7 points behind Nearing. So they're still definitely in attacking range of Joe McCauley, and for sure the other guys below following McCauley. So anything can really happen still in the championship order with only 2 races left in the season. So this is going to be a really important race. McCauley not being able to show up for today is going to hurt his chances for sure, but we have seen how dominant he has been in the last 4 races. If he comes back for the night race in Monza with a strong finish, who knows, he could still end up as the championship winner.
Yeah, definitely so. He's got the pace. But anyway, here we go towards the start of the GT3 qualifying session, and it will be the number 69 McLaren of Andy Boardman with Peter Henneberg right on his tail as they come out to start the GT3 qualifying lap. So we'll go on board now with the 720S as he rushes down towards the hairpin La Source, turn 1 here. And of course, so important to get a nice exit. Don't go wide onto that sausage curb. You'll lose so much time and pace as you come down towards Eau Rouge and then Radion, the 2 most famous corners on this circuit. Completely flat through this section of the circuit, and Andy Boardman has actually lost it and he's gone off track. That'll invalidate his lap time, and that means he'll have to abort that lap, which will put Peter Henneberg as the first GT3 car still on for a valid lap, and you can see a replay there courtesy of Jake Boswell, our broadcaster tonight. And focus will now shift over to the Dane, Peter Henneberg, the number 77, as he continues onwards. Of course, one of the championship contenders, the main contenders. As we just mentioned a moment ago, now he comes down towards Bruxelles. Look how much he's turning the wheel, full 90 degrees there. Not quite going too far over. And then he comes up towards No Name. Important not to go too wide here, very, very wide. And I don't think it was enough to invalidate his lap. I think he is still on for a valid lap. Now comes towards Buon. Nice and committed there, touches the outside curb. Nice and tight towards the inside. Could have been a bit closer towards the apex, but still looking good as now he heads into campus. And you can just see the commitment here with the GT3 car so much quicker than the GT4. Of course, you do expect that, but of course at this circuit, the time difference between them is so much bigger than it usually is at some of the circuits. Now out of Stavelot, and you can see here from the splitter cam of the McLaren just how quick everything is in these GT3 cars. Now he comes up towards Blanchimont. Should be completely flat in this McLaren. Should be no hint of a lift. Absolutely no hint of a lift. Now makes his way towards the bus stop chicane. Nice and late on the brakes. How much of the curve will he take? Nice and early and aggressive on the entry. Not too bad on the exit either. Doesn't go too wide. And will cross the line to start with a 2:18.6.
That is a really good first lap for him to set. We see Bart Macchia following it up with 3/10 behind Henneberg. So Henneberg setting the bar. That is a good first lap. Let's see if he can improve it, but the other guys have a pretty tall order to meet. It's not too easy to get 2:18 or less with only 2 or 3 laps to go for the entire qualifying session.
Yeah, 29 degrees track temperature out here at the moment. It's a little on the hot side, but of course it's actually quite nice out there at the moment, and they'll be enjoying these conditions with the optimum grip levels we have. This is Tim van Wezenmile, and oh, this man had the most heartbreaking race last weekend. Was on for a podium, but unfortunately served his pit stop, didn't count towards his mandatory requirements because he didn't put fuel in the car, and well, had to settle for outside the top 10. And you know, I get the feeling, Howlin, after having something like that happen to him, he's never gonna forget that until he does get that podium. But at the same time, I think that's the last time he'll ever forget to make sure that fuel requirement is on.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, he's prepared his setup beforehand. I have a feeling that he might have overlooked that aspect before he started the race at Suzuka and just entered into the pit lane, didn't have the setup correctly, and just stopped in his box, completely forgetting about it. But for sure, this week he should have everything prepared before he even has to go into that pit. So hopefully all's good with him, and he has really been coming alive in the later half of the championship. You know, he was a little bit behind, struggling in the first few races, but he had a really strong showing at Suzuka. So hopefully he can carry that momentum and make a redemption story for him this time around.
Yeah, redemption story would be absolutely fantastic. But you know what is looking absolutely fantastic? Peter Henneberg is 3/10 up on his lap at the moment, coming up towards the timing line, gains another 10th out of the bus stop chicane. It's a 2:18.1 for the 77, laying down a firm benchmark to say, look, you guys can try, but I'm going to keep going quicker and quicker as he starts his final lap of the qualifying run. But Bart Macchia is going to keep him honest. He's going to be lining up second provisionally as it stands, 4/10 away, but he'll be on the front row of the grid as it stands. So the two championship contenders to take the lead away from Joe McCauley, sitting on the front row of the grid at the moment.
Yeah, things are looking good for them and looking bad for McCauley. One thing I am surprised about is Clausen still hasn't set up a lap time, and we saw in the first race, he was so strong, such a commanding victory in the first race of this championship, but hasn't really been able to meet that form as of late. I'm wondering what's going to happen with him in this qualifying session. And he's already been overtaken by other drivers in the championship standings. If Stein, Boardman, and Nearing all ahead of him, along with Mattia and Henneberg.
He definitely excelled in the wet, didn't he, at Barcelona in those horrible conditions that we started the season with. But I tell you what, that's not a bad lap time. A 2:18.7 will throw him third with his first valid lap of the session, and not too far off of Bart Matcher, and he does have another flying lap left to do here, so Quade Claessens could still find himself on the front row.
Right, and just as I was saying, he shows up. He's doing good now, looking good. He has a chance for getting what looks like probably a P2. Henneberg is creating quite a big distance between him and Mattia. 4/10, that's a lot of time to make up with only one lap to go. There's definitely a little bit of pressure for these guys to set something good, and it's hard. It's hard to do when you have this is the last lap to do it. Everything is on the line, right?
Yeah, Peter Henneberg has invalidated his lap, by the way. He won't be improving his time. Bart Matcher is 0.3 of a second up on his qualifying time as it stands, comes into the bus stop chicane, gains an extra 10th, goes up to 0.4, loses a bit on the exit. He's going to come up towards the timing line. It won't be enough to take pole position. And Andy Boardman will go third as well with his first valid lap of the session. So right at the end, Boardman throws it on the second row provisionally. But Quade Claessens, remember, is still on a valid lap. He could still improve. Tim van Wezenmile is also on a valid lap, as is Simon Thompson, Christian Buchel, and Zeljko Madso in the AM class. So this is not done yet. Peter Henneberg lines up provisionally on pole at the moment, but it could still be taken away from him by the likes of Quade Claessens. He's 0.4 up on his lap time at the moment, the South African. He could throw down a surprise pole position here at round 5.
Yeah, for sure. If not pole position, he definitely looks like he's set to get P2 at the very least.
So Tim van Wezenmile comes across the line. He'll throw his car up into 8th. And Simon Thompson crosses the line as well. That'll be the end of his qualifying session. He'll finish in 7th. Here comes Quade Claessens, though. 0.5 of a second up towards the line. Is it going to be pole? No, it's not. 75 thousandths of a second. But he puts himself on the front row of the grid, and he splits the championship contenders, to Peter Henneberg's delight and Bart Matcher's dismay.
Claessens showing why he is a force to be reckoned with and why he deserved that first race victory. You know, he's really only standing a little bit behind in the championship because he did have that one sign out earlier on. So yeah, he's really putting himself in a good position to claw back some points and get a little bit higher in the order where he deserves to be. Great showing from him today.
Yeah, Christian Buchel and Jan Matthias, the only cars left on track. And in fact, Jan Matthias isn't actually on a valid lap, but Christian Buchel is in 14th place at the moment. 0.3 of a second, 0.4 of a second up on his lap time. Is this going to be enough to gain him a position right at the end of qualifying? No. And Christian Buchel will finish the session 14th. So there you go then. Peter Henneberg lines up on pole position with Quade Claessens alongside him on the front row. And what an exciting end to the qualifying session we had there.
Right, amazing job. A lot of these drivers are really close. It's just over 0.2 separates the top 4 drivers in the GT4 class, and we just saw how close the top drivers in the GT3 class are. Spa is a track that a lot of people have a lot of practice on, so I'm expecting to see some really good and hard racing and keeping things clean. Things are going to be competitive. I think a lot of people have really good experience here, so looking forward to what we're going to see between these drivers today.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting as well. And I actually realized amongst all of that, there's a GT3 car right at the back of the grid. As I look in the results here, 26th place. Sven Kunis is actually right at the back. So that's going to be quite difficult for him, as he's going to be starting behind those 7 GT4s. And, of course, you know, as we've already seen this season, you know, from a couple of guys that have had to start at the back of the grid. You know, admittedly, they're at the back of the grid because they violated qualifying rules. It wasn't the case for this this driver this time round. But yeah, it is going to be interesting as you're seeing a flyby here of the grid. We'll run you through the exact order now. So, of course, it is Peter Henneberg that starts on pole position with Quay Claessens alongside him, Bart Matcher and Andy Boardman on the second row of the grid, Mikolaj Ponitzi and Klaus Neering on the third row, Simon Thompson and Tim van Wezenmile on the fourth row of the grid with Marcus Stein and Neil Pimlott from the AM class getting into the top 10. Incredible performance from him around here at Spa. Jan Matthias, Jonathan Bentz, Freddie Kruger, Christian Buchel, Zeliko Madso, Christopher Millon, Tim Ireland, Gareth Rondunda round out the GT3 field. Then on to the GT4s, it's Jesperi Hilakallio on the front row alongside Mikael Sundstrom with Alexander Guglia and Joachim Svensson in the nearly on-pace cars behind them. Daniele Vidimari shares a row with Juuso Grunmark, and Mark Brown has to share the last row of the grid with Tatsuya Svinkas at the back, who did not qualify in the GT3 field. So, 26 cars on the grid. And we are going to be having quite an interesting race here indeed. Of course, these McLaren Cup races, I mean, Howlin, I don't know about you, but I think we're not out of order by saying every single race in this McLaren Cup has been better than the last, which is saying something considering the first race was in monsoon conditions.
Yeah, it's just been an amazing unfolding of stories throughout the championship. Every race has some amazing finish and some tragic disasters at the same time. It's really been exciting and an amazing viewing experience for me as a commentator so far. So I'm looking forward to what happens today, and we can be sure to expect something to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible, you know, the stories that we've seen develop over this championship. And if you're new around here tonight and you're thinking to yourself, well, you know, I'm new to RCI, what have you got on offer here for Monday night? Well, if you have some spare time during the week, go back and watch the first 4 races of this championship, because you won't be disappointed, I can promise you that. It's been absolutely incredible. And of course, if you do have that extra hour free here tonight, well, strap yourself in, because these races have been absolutely crazy. Single make series usually are crazy. And speaking of single make series, we're going to have the Porsche Cup returning in November. And I believe George Smith is going to be joining me in the commentary box for that one. I think that's already been decided well in advance, because George Smith pretty much books up any position for the Porsche Cup the moment it becomes available. So it's going to be exciting to commentate alongside him for that. But we live in the present here for the McLaren Masters Cup. And like I said before, if you're new around here, do like and subscribe. It does help us a lot. And look forward to Saturday for the 12 hours of Bathurst. We're going to be streaming the Pro and Pro-Am split. We got plenty of popular names within ACC, some real-life drivers competing, esports drivers, influencers, and so many well-established names in ACC as they start to pull away for the formation lap here at Spa. 28 degrees track temperature, 22 degrees air temperature, optimum track, the wind blowing to the north, and it's a lovely sunny day here at Spa-Francorchamps, and it's perfect weather, isn't it, Howlin, for a race today?
Yeah, perfect weather, perfect track condition. We have optimum track, and this is the best conditions you can get for setting fast laps and fast, hard racing. So excited. We saw these guys are setting good lap times in qualifying.
Yeah, a lot of these guys were caught out, obviously, last week at Suzuka when it was supposed to be a night race, and obviously it didn't become a night race because we had a bit of a back-end issue on one of the event files, which has been amended now. And, well, you know, it was a bit of a surprise for all of them, of course, because they were expecting a 10 o'clock start, and instead they got a 12 o'clock start, which is what we have here for Spa today. And amongst myself and the drivers, we decided that it would be best if Monza, for the final round of the championship, would be held as a night race. So you've got that to look forward to in a week's time, if you've got time free on a Monday night. I can see Tom Roberts and Josh Relation in the chat for us here. Of course, Josh, one of our commentators here at RCI, and Tom, one of our former admins. And good luck to Tom, by the way, leaving his home country of Wales to go all the way over to Germany to work for Fanatec. And we already announced it at the Nürburgring 3 hour, but congratulations again, Tom, and best of luck to you. And I hope to see that Fanatec direct drive wheel in the post in the next few weeks. So anyway, here we are at Spa, halfway round the lap. And Howlin, I think it's time. Who's going to be your prediction for tonight? Who are you going to put down to win tonight's race?
You know what? I think Claessens is going to do a really good finish today, but I'm putting Mattia as the race winner for the GT3 class. He's just shown time and time again that he can really pull out an amazing strategy with the pit stop. And here at Spa, the pit stop is everything with how long that pit lane exit is. So they're really going to have to be careful with when they come in and why they come in. So my bet's on Bart Mattia for GT3 class. And for the GT4 class, I'm just going to go with a safe pick, Hilakalio. He's really just shown he is the premier driver in our championship for that GT4 class. Really, the only struggle he had was at Suzuka, but with him setting pole position at Spa today, I'm expecting him to get back into his regular form, and that form is consistent poles, consistent podiums, and consistent wins.
Well, I'm going to put all my eggs on the basket of Quade Claessens. Pulled out an incredible lap at the end of qualifying. And of course, well, it wouldn't be one of my predictions if I wasn't going for one of the South Africans on the grid, because I have a lot of respect for the South African sim racing community. They do an awful lot, and they are an absolutely amazing scene. And whilst we're here, before we do get underway with the race, big thank you to RaceDepartment AK Informatica, Raceface, and Next Level Racing for the partnerships they offer us here at Racing Club International. And we'll have an announcement on some Raceface Speed Labs benefits that you guys can get very, very soon if you're looking for some cheap, affordable, and high-quality sim racing coaching from some of South Africa's best sim racers. So we'll have more for you guys at the Bathurst 12 hour on that one. But as we get ready to go here for the McLaren Masters Cup, Howlin's got Bart Matcha down for a win. I've got Quade Claessens down for a win. You've got Hilakalio down for a win in GT4. I'm going to go with Mikael Sundström, the man who has been in incredible form as of the last few months around Racing Club International races across all the different championships. And I think after taking that win at Suzuka, he's going to do a good job here at Spa today. So here we go then. 60 minutes of racing, one mandatory pit stop, live stewarding, and a grid full of McLarens. So they make their way down towards the start-finish straight. Everyone, well, down towards the timing line rather. Everyone ready and prepared. The run down to Eau Rouge. Can everyone keep it clean? It's been fairly clean on the start so far this series, but the most cars we've seen on the grid to date. And we are live for round 5 of the McLaren Masters Cup. Peter Hedberg cleanly into the lead at turn 1. Bit of contact between the likes of Andy Boardman and Bart Matcha, but they seem to get through cleanly. And there's a GT4 car that was just off at the bottom of the hill and now over at the top of Radion. It's the number 13 car. And I think, is that Grönmark? It might be. It's one of the back markers for the GT4 class. It was Grönmark, in fact. And Bart Matcha is going to look to try and take that third place back from the likes of Andy Boardman. And he has taken it back from the likes of Andy Boardman. So Matcha under pressure at the start, but he takes his place back as Henneberg and Claessens start to pull away.
So we're seeing Tim van Weesmel in the pit lane. I wonder what happened with him.
Tim van Wezenmile in the pit lane already. That's a good shout there. Howlin didn't spot that. Did he start on the grid, I wonder? We'll have to find out as the race goes on. I'm sure we'll get informed if anything did happen incident-wise and he's been forced to retire. The live stewards will let us know about it, but we continue onwards here. Here's Andy Boardman, started 4th, remains 4th. Here's the GT4s. Mikael Sundström has taken the lead in GT4 ahead of Joachim Svensson, and Hilakallio has dropped to 3rd. So it's another race that we see where Hilakallio gets a poor start and drops down the order. This is a common theme for Jesperi Hilakallio, that he qualifies well, drops down the order at the start, and then comes back through to fight his way up. But right at the front of the pack, Peter Henneberg leads the way, but he's already under pressure from Quade Claassen, so we're not even a lap of racing down. So into the bus stop chicane at full speed for the first time. They are as they were in the top 5. Henneberg, Claessens, Bart Matcher, Andy Boardman and Klaus Neering. So no changes in the top 5. All been fairly clean as well by the looks of it. I didn't really see any major incidents rather than the GT4 going off in the background at Eau Rouge and Radion of Juuso Grönmark. He's well behind the pack. As you can see on the track map, there's a GT3 car that's gone wide at La Source. I think that was the GT3 that found itself at the back of the field, Svinkdas. And now Bart Matcher is starting to challenge Quade Claessens for 2nd place, and Bart Matcher is going to be ahead of Quade Claessens before the end of the Kemmel Straight. So Bart Matcher makes his way up into 2nd place, and he can now start to focus on Peter Henneberg in front. The fight for the championship lead fully in effect here.
Okay, here we go. Bart Matcher, my guy, making the moves on the Kemmel Straight on just lap 2. And, you know, hopefully he doesn't run into any issues like he has been in the past few races. He's had some accidents early on in the races, but even with that, he's been able to claw back with really good finishes. So if he can keep things together, I'm expecting a really strong finish from him.
Klaus Neering has had a massive problem. He was in 5th. He now finds himself behind the GT4s. He's got a massive amount of damage on the front of that car. So something has happened to the number 24. But we're keeping our eyes on the 404 of Bart Matcher, because not only has he got past Quade Claessens, but he's right on the back of Peter Henneberg. Bart Matcher is flying here in the first few minutes, and he's going to be looking to take the lead of this race, this lap or the next, at the pace he's going.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing now, Hilakallio has fallen down to 4th place in the GT4 class, and that's from pole position. Hopefully he can bring things back together, but like you're saying, Ryan, really not just poor starts at every race, it seems. I wonder what was going on his end, but hopefully he can bring things back together. We see Matcher closing in on Henneberg. If things go just like the last lap, he's going to get the move done at the end of Kemmel Straight.
He might not wait until the end of Kemmel Straight, though, because he's going to go side by side into La Source on the inside. So close between the McLarens. They get so close that they don't touch. And now it's going to be a drag race down towards Eau Rouge. Which one has got the advantage? I think it's going to be Bart Matcher. And he is going to be in front as he goes into Eau Rouge. Bart Matcher takes the lead. And then we see Peter Henneberg cross over the top of Radion, has to slow down to avoid a track cut. That's going to leave him vulnerable to the likes of Quade Claessens. Can Quade Claessens take 2nd place back here from the likes of Peter Henneberg at the end of the Kemmel Straight? He outbrakes himself. He nearly runs into the back of Bart Matcher, but he manages to get it stopped in time. He'll rejoin and lose a place down to 4th.
Oh my god, what a move going on there. And Henneberg, I feel like he just got sleeping a little bit at La Source, letting Matcher through him. Now Matcher leading the race. And here we are with the GT4s.
Well, Quade Claessens didn't really account for the additional speed he probably got from the slipstream of Peter Henneberg and outbraked himself going into Les Combes, and of course now he's lost a place because of it. Joachim Svensson's got ahead of Mikael Sundström in GT4, by the way. And Sundstrom now finds himself under pressure from his teammate Alexander Guglia. So you can see Jesperi Hilacalio in the background there as well. And of course, Daniele Vidamari just on the end of this pack. Of course, he's picked up 2 podiums so far this season, Vidamari, and he wouldn't mind adding a 3rd one to his collection so far.
I love to see this. This has been the theme throughout the championship. These 5 guys in the GT4 class are always on the same shot every time we look at their race. So close throughout the race, and right now we see the car 900 GT4 car of Svensson. He's pulling away a little bit, but Sundstrom, Guglia, and Hilacalio all sticking really close with Vidamari, or not too far behind. Or is that Brown?
It's definitely Vidamari behind Hilacalio. Mark Brown is a bit further back from them. I think he's about 4 seconds back, the number 55. So Jan Matthias and Mikolaj Panizzi, by the way, in GT3 have both come in and served their mandatory pit stops already. Not sure if there's been any sort of damage on those cars, and that's why they've had to go in early, or whether this is just purely down to strategy. We'll have to find out as the race goes on, but one thing is for sure, is that Tim van Weesmaal in the number 11 is really far back already, because he's had to start from the pit lane. We'll bring more information to you about that when we find out. But Bart Matcher, what an amazing start he's had, fended off his position from the likes of Andy Boardman at the start, got past Claessens, got past Henneberg, and now he's going to look to pull away.
Yeah, and Claessen's losing out on that exchange, dropping from 2nd place into 4th now in the race. Hopefully he can keep up with these guys. He's not too far behind from Boardman. Boardman not too far behind from Henneberg. Look at that. The GT4 guys keeping it close, keeping it clean. They're always sticking together so close. No move being done at this moment, but they're setting up at any moment. They could make an attack from behind. A little bit of a gap is opening up between these guys. Still, the 5th car in this pack has the 1st car in sight. That just goes to show how close they are. They're always in the same camera shot whenever we're looking at them.
Yeah, the GT4s have been so close, especially these top 5. And we expect them to be like that for the rest of this race, and of course next week at Monza under the lights. And of course, just to keep you up to date what's happening with GT3 AM that we have here for this race, and of course next week as well. Neil Pimlott leads the way in GT3 AM, the number 22. He's up into 8th place, followed by Kruger and Madzo, rounding out the top 10 for the AM. So they're doing fairly well in there so far, of course mixing it up with some of the pros, and this is going to be some good experience for a few of these AM guys, getting to mix it up with the pro drivers, seeing the lines that they take, where they're braking, see what they can learn from them. And of course, most importantly, they get to race some of them. Of course, the position they finish overall won't really count. It's class position that matters. But of course, everyone knows that you always like to fight for a bit of overall position, just to boost your pride a bit. And tell you what, Andy Boardman, sorry, is going to be looking to boost his pride a bit, but he's had a mistake. He's touched on the side of Henneberg, and it's sent him spinning around. And I just get the feeling that it was a bit late back, and I don't really know if there was enough room there for his McLaren 720S to fit. And he's gone spinning. Of course, live stewards here today, they will investigate every incident going in and around the circuit, so we'll know for sure if that was, if that is going to be a penalty for anyone. But judging by the way we had a quick look at that, I think that's probably going to go down as a racing incident.
Yeah, always tough. That little section right at the end of the Camel Straight going into Les Combes, that's a huge opportunity, and we always see, as we have, attacks are being made, and there's not a lot of room to navigate at that section. So unfortunately, Boardman coming out on the shorter end of that exchange.
Of course, this all falls into Quade Clarson's hands now, because he's jumped up into 3rd place, and more importantly, he finds himself on the tail of Peter Henneberg. Peter Henneberg, who qualified very, very well, just doesn't seem to be able to carry that pace into the race here at Spa right now, and he was slower than Bart Matcher, he was slower than Andy Boardman, and he's slower than Quade Clarson's, forgive me, at the moment. And I get the feeling that the South African is going to be lining up a move in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, Matcha definitely would like the look of this. These guys battling out has let him grow the lead to over almost 3.5 seconds right now. So the more that these guys have to fight, defend, and attack with each other, the bigger the opportunity for Matcha is to pull away.
Well, just about 12 minutes into the race, and it's already been absolutely crazy. As we said, these McLaren races, they just keep going and going with the excitement factor, and that is going to continue building over the course of this race, I'm sure, especially in GT4. Joachim Svensson leads from Mikael Sundstrom and Alexander Guglia, the nearly on pace cars, 1, 2, 3 at the moment. But if there's anything we've learned from these nearly on-pace teammates over this championship, they are not afraid to get physical with each other, especially Mikael Sundstrom and Joachim Svensson. There's a couple of times they've come to blows already this season, and although it's all in good heart, and their teammates, they'll get over it no matter what happens. We've seen Mikael Sundstrom come together with Svensson at Kyalami. Guglia came together with Svensson at Suzuka. And right now, Alexander Guglia, he's under pressure from Hilicalio. Hilicalio cuts Radion. He'll have to slow down to avoid getting a penalty. Might have picked up a track cut for his efforts there as well. And that's something we haven't even mentioned today. It's that, you know, track limits is going to be a massive factor around here. This is the one circuit on the calendar you never want to get a drive-through penalty at.
For sure. Drive-throughs, for track limits, for any damage, if that happens, it's almost raced over with how long that pit lane is. There's no coming back, basically. So really, these guys have to do their best to keep it consistent and keep it safe. Play the long game. Don't make any unnecessary mistakes. And we already see 2 of the GT3 AM drivers, Milan and Svinkunas, they're picking up some penalties. I'm curious to see what those were for, but they're already showing how easy it is to pick up some infractions at Spa.
Yeah, we'll give you a little penalty report update in a couple of laps' time, but we're currently going to focus on the battle for second place in GT3. Peter Henneberg being chased down by Quade Clarsons, and Bart Matcher is 4 seconds up the road already from these two. Bart Matcher is in absolutely incredible form around here at Spa. We were watching him in practice before the stream began, and we weren't really convinced that Bart Matcher was having such a great practice session. He was quite far down the order, but of course then he came out in qualifying with an amazing result, putting himself on the 2nd row of the grid. And, well, now looks to be potentially running away with it. But here is Neil Pimlott and Kruger, and this is the battle for AM lead in the McLaren 720S category. And of course Neil Pimlott in that lovely Jensen Team Rocket livery, which I got the pleasure of seeing at Donington Park not too long ago for the 3 hour. And Kruger in the 777 behind, and of course these guys, they're going to be challenging. Oh, bit of a ping issue I think there for Kruger, but he is still on the circuit, do not worry. And of course these guys are going to be fighting intensely for the lead in AM. We'll give you an update on the AM Championship standings a bit later on in the race as we come towards the end. But as for now, it is Neil Pimlott leading the way in the race, and Alexander Guglia is still trying to fend off the likes of Hilicalio. But Hilicalio seems to have got a much better run coming out of Radion, and now he's going to be all over the back of Guglia's car. He's going to go to the left. He's going to be committed. How late will he be on the brakes? They nearly touch as they come down towards the braking zone. Hilicalio on the outside. Guglia defends his line, and that's good defending there.
Yeah, amazing job. And, thinking about Barmacia, he's really happy what's going on between Henneberg and Clausen. Sorry about that. Could it be that Henneberg is holding up Clausen's? I'm not sure. It seems like Henneberg has a faster best lap than Clausen's right now, but he's still not pulling away from Clausen's, and that's really doing favors for Mattia.
It definitely is. I mean, just to give you guys some context here, Bart Matcher's fastest lap of the race is a 2:19.3 compared to, well, pretty much everyone else running in the 2:19.7s, 2:19.8s. And then the rest of the field further down from these guys running in the 2:20s. And, I just get the feeling that you're right, Howling. Quade Clausen's, I think he's quicker, for sure, but he can't go any quicker because he's stuck behind Peter Henneberg.
Right.
And here we go then. Kruger on Pimlott for the AM lead. The 777 goes past the 22. Or is he fully past? Yes, he is, into Lecombe. So, change in the lead for AM. And Kruger in the 777. Looking pretty good as we look back to the battle in Pro. Battles all around here, it seems. Battle for the lead of AM, battle for second place in Pro, and then, of course, battle pretty much everywhere in GT4. As Hilicalio, in fact, has come into the pit lane, the timing board is telling me. So Hilicalio is going for an early pit stop. We've seen him do this before, remember? At a couple of circuits, so this isn't out of the ordinary for Hilicalio, and it's going to be interesting to see where he comes out now. I think he's going to try and find some clear air. And, well, I mean, if he is quicker than the likes of Guglia, then he needs that clear air. And this stop will definitely do that. But as it stands, Guglia is still going to be in front. But here comes Quade Clausen's then on the back of Peter Henneberg down towards the bus stop chicane. Is he going to go for a move on the inside? No, too far back. But he is going to be having a look into La Source for sure, and if not, at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Those are his best overtaking opportunities. Don't think he's going to have a look into La Source. Didn't quite get the exit he needed. Wasn't quite close enough either. The last lap by Henneberg, by the way, a 20.5. Almost a 20.6. Quade Clausen's a 20.3. So Clausen's is going 0.3 quicker, while still being held up. Meanwhile, Bart Matcher's going 0.2 quicker further up the road.
Yeah, let's think. What is going on that we're seeing between Clausen's and Henneberg? This is a single make championship, but these drivers still have the opportunity to differentiate with the setup. So on Spa, we all know draft is a huge factor. So could it be that Clausen's is really benefiting from being in that nice zone, that little bit right behind Henneberg, and keeping up with that draft? Could it also be that he has a lower aero setup and he's able to stick in the straights, or the other way around? Is he catching up in the corners with higher aero? Something's going on here. Clausen's looks like he should have the pace to pass, but somehow Henneberg is keeping ahead, and the battle is going on for several laps now.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. The setup of either driver's car could be a massive indication as to why their lap times are so different and why their strengths and weaknesses are different over different parts of the circuit. And I think, to me, Quade Clausen's, he definitely looks quicker in the middle sector, the more downforce focused part of the circuit, whereas Henneberg just seems to have the edge when it comes to sector 1 and towards the end of sector 3. I have no doubt that Clausen's is quicker. And of course, like you said, the slipstream could play a part. But I think that Quade Clausen's, he's going to be having a look for a move on this lap. He's catching, he's in the slipstream, he's gaining up towards Blanchimont. He's not going to have a move into Blanchimont, nowhere near close enough. Is he going to have a look into the bus stop chicane? He's a bit closer than he was last time round. He's later on the brakes than Henneberg, and he's going to be right on the back of them as they're going to come out of the bus stop chicane. But is he going to have the drive to go down towards La Source? No, as it just looks like Henneberg has a much better exit from the corner than Quade Clausen's. And that means that Henneberg will hold it into turn 1. And Quay Claessens is going to have to wait until the camel straight to try again.
Right, and you know, if it is really the case that Claessens has a higher downforce setup, it's going to be a challenge for him. You need to go low aero to make moves on drivers at Spa. No matter how close you can get in the corners with that higher grip, higher downforce, if there's someone in front of you, it's not too hard to just block the pass and keep them behind. And then when it comes to the straight, there's just nothing for Claessens to gain. Because he has that high downforce, Henneberg is going to be able to pull out every single time, no matter how close they get into these tighter corners.
Yeah, Andy Boardman, by the way, has come into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop. So he's getting that out of the way after he unfortunately went for a bit of a spin up towards Lecombe. And he's going to be trying to make his way back up through the field. Whilst we have a moment, we will give you a bit of a penalty report update. So, incident on lap 1, turn 18, involving the 23 and the 14. Warning for car 14. So, car 14, as far as I'm aware, is the GT4 of Jusso Gronmark. So, he's been given a warning. Car 14 was then given a 15-second time penalty for a lap 2 incident with car 141. And that was Tim Ireland, actually, in the 141, currently sits 10th. And then a 5-second penalty for car 33 after getting involved on lap 3 with car 87, and 87 was Zilico Madso. So a couple of guys getting some penalties, a warning out there as well. But overall, 23 minutes into the race, it has been very, very clean so far.
Right, and we're seeing just that with Henneberg and Claessens. These guys are so close. Nothing bad has happened so far in terms of incidents. And all the while, Mattia pulling away. 6.5 seconds now separates him and Henneberg. Really, I don't know if there's anything that can be done. Claessens might have a chance if he can just get past Henneberg, but like I was saying earlier, if he doesn't have the setup that enables him on the straights, it's going to be a really tall order for him to get ahead of Henneberg. There's going to be no opportunity in the corners. And if he can't pull away on the straights with Henneberg sitting on a low downforce setup, I don't know what's going to happen.
Mikael Sundstrom's come into the pit lane in GT4 as well, so he's going for an earlier than usual pit stop. And yeah, like you were saying, I think one of the biggest concerns for Quay Claessens is even if he does get past Peter Henneberg, which he's going to try and do now, he might just get overtaken again the next time they come around to the Kemmel Straight if Henneberg can hold on to the back of Claessens, because he'll have that straight line speed advantage. So, you know, it's a very good point you make, and as much as Spa is one of these circuits with, you know, very, very quick sectors that require low downforce, there's also those high downforce sectors, and it's such a toss-up. How do you set up the car if you're going to go for obviously longer endurance races where maybe you're not expecting to be making overtakes on people? It's kind of okay to go for a high downforce setup, but you know, in these sprint races, you probably do have to go more aggressive just because the chances of overtakes and the likelihood of overtakes are so much, you know, higher. And, well, Quay Claessens wishes he could be overtaking Peter Henneberg right now, but unfortunately, he is still behind him. But even if he came home in 3rd place, it wouldn't be a bad result for the South African.
Right, Ryan, and that's a good point. You know, going with that high downforce setup might be good for consistency and stability over a longer run. But if you're unfortunately stuck behind someone like we see with Claessens behind Henneberg, it's going to be a difficult task for him to get ahead. And we see on the straights, Claessens has that slipstream, but Henneberg is still able to keep ahead with a good margin, like we're seeing right now. So even in the case that Henneberg does end up behind him, like you're saying, he can very easily come back on the straights as long as he's able to stay within a reasonable range coming out of each corner.
Something that does seem quite clear to me, though, is that Quay Claessens is much better on the brakes than Peter Henneberg is when they come down towards the bus stop chicane. Quay Claessens seems to gain quite a few tenths every lap on Peter Henneberg, so he definitely has an advantage on the brakes into the bus stop. I think he just needs to wait for an opportunity where Henneberg gets a slow exit out of Stavelot and he can really put the power down and, you know, try and make a move into the bus stop chicane. I don't think he's going to get that chance coming through onto Kemmel straight. As I just had a little bit of a look there, I thought Henneberg maybe had a bit of a slow exit and Claessens was going to catch him, but it doesn't seem to be the case now. It's going to be another lap that Quade Claessens has to wait until Stavelot now to try again, and this is going to be frustrating him so much, especially considering the fact that Bart Matcher has now got an 8.1 second lead. He's flying in the 404.
Right, and that's just great for Matcher, great for my winning pick, but not so great for P2 and P3 right now. So we saw, like, on the Kemmel straight, Claessens just wasn't gaining on Henneberg, even with that amazing slipstream. So it really could be down to the setup here. And I'm not sure. The only chance, I guess, is if Henneberg makes a mistake, like you're saying, Ryan. So the pressure is on. Claessens has been behind him for a long time now.
Mikael Sundström coming to the end of the Kemmel straight into the comms, and he is ahead of Joachim Svensson. So Joachim Svensson, who had just come out of the pit lane. Sundström stays, well, he's actually jumped ahead of Svensson because Svensson was leading the GT4 class. So change in position then for the GT4s. And you can see Hilakalio just a couple of seconds behind them. The ones that haven't pitted so far in GT4, it's just Alexander Guglia by the looks of it. Yes, it is. So he's going to go longer than these two. We're not even at the halfway point of the race. And most of the GT4s already done their mandatory pit stops. This is quite unusual.
Yeah, pulling out a different approach today. I wonder what the reasoning is, because usually, we were talking earlier in the championship, why do these guys like to wait to the last minute? It's that you get in a groove, you're on the pace, and you don't want to interrupt that flow. But now we're seeing they're all going in early, at the latest in the halfway point throughout the race, but that's a lot different from what we were seeing earlier. So do you have any idea, Ryan, what could these guys be thinking differently now at Spa?
I mean, I think the only factor that comes to mind could be the enormous pit lane that we have here. And obviously, you know, an undercut or an overcut, probably more an undercut, could be so much more powerful here because of the long pit lane that we have here at Spa-Francorchamps. And I think maybe the concern that, you know, one of them could get the pit entry long later, you know, on in the race, and then they have no time left in the race to try and make up from that mistake. They probably want to get the pit stop done as early as possible so that if there is a mistake with the pit stop, entry or exit, they have enough time left in the race to make up for it with their pace if they can see the target in front of them. So that's probably the only reason I can think of that these guys might want to get it out of the way early is, you know, in case there was any issue like a slow pit stop, they have time left in the race to make up for it.
Right, and Guglia, the lone horse, staying out there, having not done his pit. Currently sitting in provisional first place, but obviously after he goes in for that mandatory pit, someone else is going to come out ahead, most likely.
Yeah, and of course, Mikael Sundström is the most likely challenger for Jesperi Hilakalio in the GT4 Championship, and, well, he's in front of Hilakalio at the moment in this race, and that will benefit him a lot. And, of course, Bart Matcher leading the way in GT3 means that he's in the best position to take the lead of the GT3 class, or the GT3 Pro class, as we reach the halfway mark of the race. And, I mean, thinking back to the races we've had so far this season, we had Quade Claessens win at Barcelona. We had Joe McCauley win at Kyalami and at the Hungaroring. We had, Peter Henneberg pick up a win last week at Suzuka. And we could be having Bart Matcher now picking up a win, potentially, knock on wood for his sake, you know, here at Spa. That's going to be 4 different winners from 5 races, and that's kind of just gone to show how competitive this McLaren championship has been.
Yeah, for sure, and that's definitely reflected in the championship standings. These guys, it's only one race result really separating first through, 5th place in the championship. So anything can happen, like we were saying earlier. And with Macaulay sitting out this race, really the championship lead is up for grabs.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which one wins today of Bart Matcher, Peter Henneberg, or even if neither of them win and somehow Quade Claessens can get himself onto the top step of the podium. Joe Macaulay's not going to be leading the championship at the end of this race. That is a fact. And it's going to make it so interesting in a week's time when he comes back and he's got to try and retake the lead of the championship. And that's going to open up for an absolutely amazing season finale at Monza. So do make sure that you're around in a week's time for that. But back to the present. Bart Matcher leads from Peter Henneberg and Quade Claessens in 3rd. Simon Thompson and Marcus Stein rounding out the top 5 for the GT3 Pro. Neil Pimlott leads the way in GT3 AM from Tim Ireland, and I think as well Chris Millen is also in the GT3 AM class. And then of course going back to GT4, it is Guglia that leads the way, still has a pit stop to do, with Mikael Sundström, Jakin Svensson, Jesperi Hilakallio and Vidamari behind. Vidamari 7.3 seconds behind Hilakallio, so he's definitely had a slow pit stop, and I think that probably takes him out of the running for a podium here today. So, 27.5 minutes left to go. Bart Matcher, the leader, goes into the pit lane. So the 404 goes into the pits, and I'm wondering if he's decided to go into the pit lane because of potential traffic up in front. Or maybe he's spotted that there's a potential gap that he can filter himself into if he pits right now and he won't have any traffic. We'll have to see exactly what happens with the 404. But he is leaving his pit stall at the moment, and he's going to trundle his way down pit lane as we watch Mikael Sundström try and pull away from the likes of Jakin Svensson and Jesperi Hilakallio. And it's a bit of an interesting situation here for Sundström and Svensson, isn't it? I mean, they're both teammates. They're both going to want to work together for the best result possible. But at the same time, you know, Svensson knows that if he finishes ahead of Hilakallio, he's going to close the gap. But he also knows that if Sundström finishes ahead of him, Sundström's gap to Svensson is just going to get bigger. So they've got this kind of weird situation of where Svensson wants Sundström to be ahead of Hilakallio, but he also wants him to be behind himself.
Yeah, you know what? You'd think that they'd want to work together, but I would actually question that given what we've seen throughout the championship. Teammates they might be, quote unquote, but when it comes to the track, I don't think any favors are being done for each other. I think these guys are putting everything that they got to do the best they can for themselves. And we've seen that. They've come together, all these teammates, really, they want to do the best that they can. And I don't know if Hilakallio is even going to be a factor in their consideration for the race today. Sundström obviously wants to close that gap, but Svensson, you know, he doesn't want to lose out to his teammate either.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of an awkward one. I mean, wasn't it the term, one of the famous terms used, teammate is just a word for someone you'd rather not hit in a race. But apart from that, there isn't much difference between your teammate and anyone else in the race. As Andy Boardman in the 69 McLaren has picked up a 15-second time penalty. Gonna have a look through the report right now. Mr. Fabian Schmidberger has joined me here in the commentary box. He's handed me a piece of paper. And it says, lap 12, turn 18, 23 and 69 involved in an incident. And car number 23, trying to think who that is off the top of my head.
I believe that is one of the AM GT3 drivers, Gareth Ronda. He's sitting way back.
13th, Gareth Ronda at the moment. So there was a collision between those two at turn 18. And 15-second time penalty was the verdict for the 69. No further action, by the way, on the Peter Henneberg Andy Boardman incident that we saw at Les Combes. So I was correct in my assumption that there probably wouldn't be a penalty there, as I think Andy Boardman kind of just created his own undoing in that incident, but good to know that we do have the verdict for that incident, and that's everything we've got so far during the race. So only 3 penalties given out so far during the race, and I have to be honest, that's been quite a good reflection of this championship so far. I think it was at Suzuka we didn't get any penalties being given out by the stewards. It was a very, very clean race.
Right, and it's really tough for Boardman. We can't forget, he was in the contention up there with Henneberg and Clausen's. So getting this 15-second penalty really is going to hurt him, and I don't think that leaves any chance for him to get a podium today.
Yeah, sits 10th at the moment, as we're looking at Svinkkunas, and Bart Matcher. Bart Matcher going past. He's going to make that fairly easy. Not going to fight him too much. Of course, Svinkkunas in the AM class, so of course he doesn't really have to fight Bart Matcher at all. Just has to let him go, and Bart Matcher has got some nice clean air in front of him for the moment. So he did seem to find a nice little pocket out there. And, well, here we go. Jakin Svensson, Jesperi Hilakallio. Gonna go side by side into Lecom. Is Hilakallio gonna have it? No, there's a GT3 car involved here as well. I think that's Jonathan Bentz in the McLaren. He's gonna try and find his way through without potentially ending up in an accident, and he does make his way through the GT4 battle, and Hilakallio is gonna have to wait again to try and get past Svensson. So just to touch on the topic you said there, Howlin, about Andy Boardman. He sits 33 points behind Joe McCauley in the championship at the moment. And, well, I mean, if I have a bit of a look through the points order here, if he finishes 10th, which, I mean, at the moment he'll finish 10th, get knocked down to 12th because of the 15-second time penalty. Finishing in 12th place will net him 29 points, so that won't even be enough to overtake Joe McCauley in the championship.
Won't be enough, but that is still really close. With McCauley not even being here today, that could spell some trouble for McCauley if, like you were seeing, a 12th place finish puts him behind someone currently sitting 5th in the championship, almost. So, well, that's going to be interesting for Monza. What can McCauley do there? But we're seeing Stein. It seems like he's pulled out ahead of Boardman coming out of the pit stop. So things are not going too well for Boardman already. He was really in that leading pack for the GT3 class, but now Stein making an appearance.
Yeah, and you've just seen Jesperi Hilakallio and Jakin Svensson go side by side, and Hilakallio has got past Jakin Svensson. That's a very, very good move from Hilakallio, very calculated, and it was nice and clean between the two of them as well. They got very, very close, but not any significant contact between the two, and of course now the GT3 cars trying to make their way past as well. As you can see, one of the 720S cars all over the back of Svensson's car, coming over the top of Radeon, and that's one of the issues you have with these cars, is that, you know, the classes are so different in pace. Sometimes you just have to tuck in behind someone and wait until the corner opens up for you to be able to get past, and there you can see as Jan Matthias makes his way through. But it's been nice and clean. There's been a lot of talk about multi-class racing and GT3 drivers and GT4 drivers having incidents together, and there's no respect between the two as to how, lapping should be taken properly. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the talk as well, Howling, because it has been one of the big subjects of multi-class racing in ACC. But I think if this championship has taught us anything, it's that, you can have multi-class racing be very, very clean between both classes, because incidents that we've seen between a GT3 and a GT4 car have been very minimal.
Exactly, and really there is no excuse for any incidents between the classes to happen. That's entirely up to the discipline of the drivers. I think it might help a lot to maybe have the mini-map open while you're driving, because you can see that GT4 drivers are marked differently than the GT3 drivers. So if you know what to expect from the car coming up ahead of you, then you can obviously do a lot better job of keeping it clean. You know, if you're in a GT3 car, you have to slow down, give them the respect that, you know, maybe they're going to hold you up in that corner, and just make the move after when it's can be done easily. But really, there is no excuse, and I completely believe that you can have clean racing like we've seen in this championship between these two classes.
Yeah, so as it stands in GT4 right now, with Mikael Sundström and Jesperi Hilakallio provisionally 1 and 2, I'll say, because I doubt Alexander Guglia is going to be ahead of these once he's finished his mandatory pit stop. We're going to be looking at Mikael Sundström closing the gap by, I think, 5 points to the likes of Jesperi Hilakallio. Of course, that's not counting pole position and fastest lap points that will be calculated after the fact. But Mikael Sundström looking to close 5 points. That'll close the gap down to 17 for the final round of the season. And I think this is going to be the big problem for Mikael Sundström or Alexander Guglia if they're going to try and take, you know, the championship in GT4. They need Hilakallio to have a bad race. And what's the one thing Hilakallio has been very good at this season? Finishing on the podium and having a good race.
Yep. And you know, still 17 minutes more left in the race. Hilakallio finally, as we saw earlier, was able to get past Svensson and is already creating that gap. He's only 2.3 seconds behind Sundström. He could still come out ahead.
Yeah, he definitely could. And I kind of just think for Hilakallio at the moment, he knows where he stands in the championship. He probably won't want to take any risky moves. That's probably why it took so long for him to get past Svensson, I think. Probably just playing it much more careful than he would have first or second round of the championship. Now that he knows he's leading, and he knows that even if Mikael Sundström wins here today and he only gets second or third, it's not really going to make too much of a difference to the points deficit. But 17 minutes to go. Peter Henneberg leads the way, but of course Bart Matcher has completed his mandatory pit stop. The drivers left that haven't done their mandatory pit stop, you can see them all there with the amber icon next to their number. They are Peter Henneberg, Quake Larson, Simon Thompson, Neil Pimlott, Tim Ireland, Chris Millen, Sven Kunis, and Guglia, of course, in the GT4. So those guys, the only ones left not having done their mandatory pit stop, and they only have about 16 minutes left to do so. I get the feeling we'll see a few more of them come in over the next few laps. We don't have long to go here. And speaking of not having long to go, as I see the likes of Peter Henneberg and Quake Claessen's come into the pit lane.
Okay, so Claessen's following Henneberg in. Probably wants to keep that pressure on and not give him any fresh air, sorry about that. So yeah, I wonder, we saw earlier in one of the races, when drivers come in at the same time, it's not always a sure bet that the driver who came in ahead exits ahead. So Henneberg, hopefully he keeps things together, gets a good, clean pit stop. Otherwise, Claessen's can definitely just make the move. They were really close on that entry.
Yeah, they were, and here's Bart Matcher, by the way, coming out of Stavelot. He's got Millen in front of him, but of course Millen's not really going to be putting up a challenge. He still has a mandatory pit stop to do, and he's got a 5-second penalty, and he's racing in a completely different GT3 class to the likes of Bart Matcher, so he shouldn't make this too difficult for him. Meanwhile, Peter Henneberg and Quake Claessen's are making their way down the pit lane. And you know what, Howlin? I'm looking at the gaps right now, and I get the feeling that Peter Henneberg might come out in front.
Really? I don't know.
I think he might. It's going to be close. Peter Henneberg's coming right up to the end of the exit. You can see him on your screen now.
Boy.
He's gone out. He's going to be coming. Bart Matcher hasn't even got down towards the end of the second straight. And yes, Quade Clarsons is going to be ahead as well of Bart Matcher. Bart Matcher's going to drop to 4th or 3rd even.
What
after
happened
the pit
there?
stops.
He was like, what was it? Over 8 seconds of a gap between him and
Had a
Henneberg.
9-second lead.
Yeah, before they went in the pits, 9 seconds on Henneberg, but now he's several seconds behind.
Well, the McLaren Masters Cup continues to confuse and excite us as now the prospect of Bart Matcher having to retake the lead of this race.
What
He's got his
happened
work
there?
cut out for him now, that's for sure. I'm with you, Howlin. He must have had a slow pit stop.
Yeah, or maybe...
Must have stalled the car on exit or something.
Yeah, no idea right now. Maybe we'll get some more information later, but that's terrible. He lost a lot of time from that.
Well, he's lost somewhere in the region of 17 seconds.
Yeah, that is insane. But even with that loss, maybe something can still be done. He's not too far behind Claessens. Only just under 3 seconds behind him, I think. So, oh, yeah, just under 3 seconds. He can see Claessens in his sights.
He can see Claessens in his sights, and more importantly, there isn't any cars between him and Quade Claessens, and Quade Claessens doesn't have any cars between him and Peter Henneberg, so this is a straightforward race to the finish now for the top 3.
And you know, as we're saying this, Henneberg has a 3.7 second gap to Claessens now. And they're coming in having been following each other with less than half a second gap for dozens of minutes. And now the gap has opened up between them.
It was around about 1.1 seconds as they came into the pit lane as we look at Jesperi Hillecallio. And he may have got past Joachim Svensson, but Joachim Svensson said, well, hold on a minute, I'm not just going to let you run away with this. Because if you're going to try and finish in front of me, then I'm going to do what every good teammate should do, and I'm going to make your life absolutely miserable for the rest of this race as I try and get past you and benefit a result for my teammate. But of course, Hillecallio is probably just going to play it safe, but he is under pressure at the moment from Svensson. Christian Buchel, by the way, in the pit lane, and he's effectively out of this race, 14 laps down, just stationary in the pit lane. Tim Ireland has earned himself a 15-second penalty. And as I look into the stewards report from Fabian Schwinberger, lap 18, turn 9, involving 23 and 141, 15-second penalty for 141. So the 23 car of, is that Ronda? It is Ronda, has been involved in another incident of which he is innocent in. And Tim Ireland has now earned himself a penalty. I think this is the most penalties we've ever seen in a McLaren Masters Cup race, which is saying something.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to draw our attention to Guglia. He's exiting the pits, and he might be ahead of Sundstrom.
Well, pit stops have been so surprising. And he is going to exit the pit lane. He's not going to be in front of Sundstrom. He'll be behind him. He will be in front of Hillecallio, though. So this means Hillecallio is 3rd. And what this also means is that Joachim Svensson has the opportunity to dethrone Hillecallio from his podium streak in the last 10 minutes of the race here. So GT4, as close as it always is. Look at this, the front 4 in GT4, all within sight of each other. And most importantly, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, all within 2 seconds.
Yeah, Guglia doing an amazing job coming out completely under the radar from what we were seeing. He's able to put himself in 2nd place in that GT4 class, ahead of Hillecallio, not too far behind Sundstrom. He was the one guy who stayed out on track, pushing off that pit stop when everyone else in his class went in early. And it's paying off for him. Somehow he is able to stay ahead and keep the pace. But look at that. Look how close these guys are. And again, all in the same shot. Now, just with 9 minutes left in this hour-long race, these guys are always, always so close, no matter how far into the race it has been. And these guys can still, you know, shake things up. We're looking at Svensson on Hilikalio. That is the best opportunity we have for some action. And that would be bad if Hilikalio doesn't keep that podium, you know, like you're saying, Ryan. That's going to be the end to his podium streak.
Yeah, and of course, if he doesn't finish on the podium, that of course just means that Mikael Sundström is going to gain even more points on Hilikalio through the race result finish. And, well, Mikael Sundström is going to be smiling about that. Hilikalio isn't going to be smiling about that. And one man that's probably had his day go a bit downhill is Bart Matcher, but one thing for sure, he is quicker than Quade Claessens. He's catching Quade Claessens. It was 2.5 seconds 2 minutes ago. It's now 1.2 seconds. Bart Matcher, man on a mission.
Yeah, we'll see. He had such a commanding lead, and now he has to make his way back up, having lost so much time. And looking at the timing sheets, does he have a faster pace than Claessens?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. But Jakin Svensson, he's closing in on Hilikalio as Bart Matcher closes in on Quade Claessens. So, battles for the podium places in both GT3 and GT4. This series just continues to deliver with action early in the race, action through the middle of the race, and drama towards the end. There is always something in these races towards the end that throws a cat in the bag, a spanner in the works. And we're always left even more confused than we were at the last race. Bart Matcher, who had a 9-second lead, now finds himself third. Needs to find a way past Quade Claessens. I'm not sure if he's got the pace to take that win away from Henneberg, but he needs to take a second place here if he wants to realistically give himself a good chance at a championship win next week at Monza. Meanwhile, in GT4, Jakin Svensson is all over the back of Jesperi Hilikalio, and I think he might even have a go towards Blanchimon here. He's going to pull out, but of course he's going to lose that slipstream effect every time he does pull out. Tucks back inside before Blanchimon. Is he going to have a look into the bus stop chicane? It's going to be one of his best chances. Hilikalio goes wide. That's going to cost him a bit of time. Now they come down towards the bus stop chicane. Is Jakin Svensson going to have a look on the inside? Hilikalio defends the inside, but that'll slightly compromise his line, and Svensson is starting to pressure the Finn.
Yep, 5 minutes, 46 seconds left on the clock. The pressure is on for Hilikalio. He has to keep this defense up, and with the slipstream, Svensson has a great shot to make that last minute move for P3. So the battle is alive for that podium, in the podium battle between both the GT3 and GT4 class here in the final minutes of the Spa race.
Yeah, and Christopher Millen is one of the, well, he is the leading AM driver at the moment, but of course he still has to serve that mandatory pit stop, of which he is going to serve right now with just 5 minutes remaining. He's also got that 5-second time penalty to serve as we switch back to Jesperi Hilikalio, who's under pressure from Svensson. There's some GT3 cars that want to make themselves known. They're going to go 3 wide down towards Bruxelles, and it's going to be Svensson on the outside. Is he going to find the way past Hilikalio? Not quite. He's going to have the inside for no name. They're side by side, millimeters between them, and Svensson makes the move up into P3.
Wow, and Svensson making out with that exchange from the GT3 class and getting ahead out of that against Hilikalio.
absolutely incredible racing in GT4. Always great to see, and there's been an incident in GT4 because Svensson got tapped by one of the GT3 cars trying to get past him. Oh, just miscommunication.
Oh, there's going to be a penalty for that GT3 driver. He completely overshot that corner, and it's ruined the race for Svensson in the final minutes.
Well, Jakin Svensson's not going to be too happy about that. I'm not sure if he's got the time to catch back up to Hilicalio and overtake him again. He's going to hope that he does have the pace and the time to do so, but it's going to be difficult for him. But now, our focus shifts back to GT3, and by the way, 2 seconds between Claessens and Henneberg out in front. You can just see the purple McLaren there up the road. If Henneberg makes a mistake in these last couple of laps, he could easily lose the race win here, and we've seen people do that in this championship. We saw a podium given away at the first round in the final corner, but here comes Bart Matcher on the inside to take second place from Quay Claessens into the bus stop chicane. He's late on the brakes, does it nice and clean, and he puts himself up into second. And now, with just 3 minutes left on the clock, should be 2 laps to go, can he chase down Henneberg to take back what should have been his win today?
Okay, so getting the moves on. 2 laps to go. I don't know if he has enough pace to make it up to Henneberg. Henneberg just has to keep it together, keep it clean. Doesn't really even have to worry about Mattia. As long as he keeps a steady pace, he should come home with this win. But amazing move by Mattia on Claessens. Claessens just isn't able to keep him behind in these final moments. That's tough.
Yeah, and Alexander Guglia, he's putting the pressure on the legs of Mikael Sundström. Mikael Sundström's not going to be too happy about this. He's thinking, hey, I've got the chance to close the gap significantly here to my championship rival. And Alexander Guglia is sitting there thinking, well, yeah, I'm only a point behind you. I'm going to try and do the same. So these guys going to fight it out to try and close the gap to Hilicalio. By the way, Svensson has closed up onto the back of Hilicalio. It's just under a second between the two of them now, and I kind of get the feeling that Svensson might go for a bit of do-or-die move, and there's been an accident. It's the same GT3 car that got involved with Jakin Svensson has now got involved with Guglia. Oh, and that's such a shame for Alexander Guglia. And it was looking so good for him. By the way, Peter Henneberg starts the final lap of the race, 2.6 seconds between himself and Bart Matcher. It's going to be a mistake now that decides that race.
Oh
But
my goodness.
Such a shame.
That is
Actually,
2 races ruined now by the same driver.
Actually, Peter Henneberg hasn't started the last lap of the race, but I was just informed by the in-game system that the last lap had begun, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. But Peter Henneberg is still continuing on his way. He's got a 3.1 second lead now to Bart Matcher. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, for Bart Matcher. A win that should have been his today, for sure. And like you said, Howland, there's definitely going to be inquiries into that GT3 car.
Oh, disaster for Guglia. He was doing such a strong race. Same with Svensson. Svensson was about to come home with that podium. Well, it ends up that he's still going to come home with a podium now that Guglia has been punted off, but that's just really unfortunate to see. And was it Brown maybe with the drive-through penalty right now that caused those 2 incidents? Not too certain, but...
No, Brown is one of the GT4 cars, so he's definitely not going to be... Yeah, he's definitely not going to be one of the cars, or any of the cars involved in that accident. By the way, this is what I was saying about Hilicalio and Svensson. Svensson has caught back up to Hilicalio. This is still on for second place now, technically.
And look at that, Henneberg, the leader of the GT3 class, coming into this battle from behind. And if there's going to be a repeat from before, that GT3 coming through might shake things up for Hilicalio. Svensson was able to get through the last time that happened.
Yeah, and this is the last lap of the race, remember. Peter Henneberg coming round now. He's just going to play it safe, not going to go for any risky moves. He knows he doesn't have to go for any risky moves, but there's GT4s battling in front of him, and Svensson's going to try and take second place from Hilicalio as they come through now. Henneberg's starting to say, come on, boys, I have to get a move on. Bart Match is going to start closing the gap as this goes on. Svensson does take second. He has a bit of a squirm, though. Hilicalio's going to try and take the place back. And there's contact between them. Bart Match has been caught up in it as well. Quade Clarsons is going to take second place for the GT3s back. And it's drama on the last lap at Spa. Just when you thought the championship couldn't get any more crazy, in the last sector of the last lap of the Spa race, everything out the window. Peter Henneberg comes into the final chicane. He is going to win in the GT3 class, followed by Quade Clarsons, who's going to move over and give second to Bart Matcher. He says, you deserve it.
Wow.
And that's incredible sportsmanship there.
Amazing stuff. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Couldn't have scripted that any better. We see the podium battle in the GT4 class get caught up by the battle for first place in the GT3 class.
And by the way, for those of you that may not have realized, Mikael Sundström took the win, but Vidimari takes second because of all the chaos happening at the end. He managed to jump both of Svensson and Hilicalio, so that puts Vidimari second, Guglia third, Svensson fourth, Hilicalio is fifth and off the podium for the first time this season.
And that has huge implications for the championship standing.
Wow. Well, as if this championship needed any more drama coming into the final race in a week's time at Monza in the dark. And Jan Matthias will come home just in front of the AM leader in Neil Pimler. So he will win the AM race for GT3. We didn't really get to track much of what was going on in the AM class, unfortunately. But so much was going on throughout the course of the race. Klaus Neering, well, he's in 11th. He's going to come round at the moment. Chris Millen has a stop-and-go penalty 30 that he hasn't served. So he's going to get a significant amount of time added on to his finishing position. But my word, what a finish in the final sector. Absolute chaos. Henneberg, amongst all of that, almost lost his race win.
Oh my. Wow. So much happened. I think the only driver who could say they had some semblance of a normal race was Sundström.
That's definitely for sure. Mikael Sundström, the only driver out there today who had somewhat of a relaxing race. I'm pretty sure he had a few scares at times as well. But that is it. Peter Henneberg, your winner for this evening. Bart Matcher will take second, and of course Quade Clarsons third. It was great to see Quade Clarsons give that second to Bart Matcher. Didn't have to give it up, by the way. There was no reason for him to do so, but he gave it up out of the goodness of his heart to say, look, you probably, you deserve that. And massive respect to give that place to him. And of course, Bart Matcher will be grateful. And guys, well, if you haven't liked and subscribed, well, now is a great time to do so. And if you haven't watched any of the McLaren Masters Cup races so far this season, go back and watch them. I can guarantee you it just keeps building. And if that's the kind of chaos that we've had at Spa for the penultimate round of the season, I'm expecting a last lap overtake for the championship in a week's time, Howlin.
Yeah, we just see how close these guys are all the way up to the finish line. And what a finish we saw today. Some huge upsets and some, just incredible.
Well, this is going to be it from us for tonight. Thank you for joining us for the McLaren Masters Cup. And, well, if you're looking forward for more RCI streams, there won't be a race on Friday. Remember, the Endurance Championship is on a mid-season break, not midweek break. And it will be returning on the 23rd of October. And of course, on Saturday, it's the big one, the one we've all been looking forward to. It's the 12 hours of Bathurst. Absolutely incredible. I'll be joining George Smith as part of Team 1. Jesse Lee and Mike Jones will be part of Team 2. And the whole 12 hours will be broadcasted live right here on RCI TV. We'll have the race program and spotter guides for the race going out this week as well. We're aiming at Wednesday to have those live for you guys. So look forward to those as well. And of course, so many exciting names competing in the 12 hours of Bathurst. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And we hope to see as many of you guys there as possible. So make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to tune in for the 12 hours of Bathurst on Saturday. But from me, from Jake Boswell, from Howlin, from all the staff at RCI and the stewards, thank you for joining us this evening and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.